Hello, my name is Sarah Foley. I also go by my brand name, which is Vertical Blonde. And what's really interesting about the way you framed it, there's a fabulous book that I highly recommend for you. It's called The Red Thread. I think it's The Red Thread. Let me get it for you right here. It's in my library. Find Your Red Thread. I knew it was something else. Find Your Red Thread by Tamsin Webster. She really talks about
maintain a board of advisors or board of directors.
Finding your red thread that's your current, basically, that you can speak into others, right? What is your thing? So her whole thing is about getting people on TED Talks and so forth. So the red kind of thing. But what's fabulous about kind of her philosophy, and that what you just tied in, is you get successful first, and then you show others how to do it. So often we see a lot of speakers that are like, I just want to be on stage for the sake of being on stage, right? The validation, or they love, the kind of the performance and the stage of it, but they don't have anything to speak from experience, right? And so our stories are what's going to make the impact, our stories of what we've done, and also kind of what comes more natural to us because we've already done it is then something we can speak into others. And then I think that's great, and maybe something to consider in it, because as you've probably recognized, coaching is becoming really, really saturated, right? And so I don't say that to scare you. I say that to kind of almost like allow you and give you permission to like hone in on a really specific side of it, right? Instead of being really broad, kind of taking an angle that resonates with them, right? So maybe new realtors, people really entering the real estate space, how to get in the right headspace from the get-go so you're not wasting a lot of time. And then what's great about that is then you've got this side door action of, we're also going to talk about your life. We're also going to talk about your mindset. We're also going to talk about your health, right? Like, so, and I kind of did this really early on when I started coaching, that my coaching was specifically on how to help wheelchair users get rid of their wheelchair tummy. Like, that was my angle. And it was really clear to them of how I could help them. And then once I got that door open, I'm talking about their relationships. I'm talking about their mindset. I'm talking about what they're doing to make money. Like, I'm taking all the angles, but they came to me and the door was opened and their heart was opened because they wanted something I had. I didn't have a wheelchair tummy. They wanted to get rid of it. It was really easy for their brain to comprehend what they could gain from me. And then I told them, in order to get rid of your wheelchair tummy, you have to literally look at the whole picture, right? Because if you don't, then you're going to go back to food, and because your relationship sucks and things like that. So, and this is just spitballing ideas, but you can speak from, I'm new in the real estate space. I got successful and wealthy quickly, which I don't ever want to hear a disclaimer from you again, right? About the wealth. We got to break that story somewhere in there. There's something in there that you still feel a little bit bad because you brought it up. So, and that awareness can help you, right? But what I'm hearing from you is I'm gaining success in the real estate space quickly, right? I'm gaining that wealth quickly. And that is something that I can offer to these younger people starting out, or older people starting out, or wherever they are in life, but they're new in the real estate space. And you can speak to the newness and the success early on, right? I love that you say that you use it to your advantage, right? I use the fuck out of my wheelchair to my advantage. It is my superpower, right? Like your youth and your vitality is your superpower, right? And so that, it's funny because it brings back my original business partner. He was my personal trainer. He's now like an amazing business coach and strategist. But we would go to all these Tony Robbins events together, and all of these older men wanted his body, his energy, his zest for life, right? They were successful in their business, but they're like, I've got, my body's getting overweight. I'm losing that energy. And so he ended up using that to his superpower because he was 23 at the time. And so in his head before Tony Robbins, he was like, I'm too young. What do they think I've got? Like, I'm just some kid. But he realized that like, it was absolutely that superpower. And so I would almost frame it as like my youth and my vitality, my youthful energy, my like all of that is what people want. Like they want that, like, because they'll go in their head like, God, if I had what she had at her age, actually, if I had what she had at my age, right? Like then they start to go into their head of like, I don't care what age it is. Like I want that confidence that she's got. I want that energy she's got. We do not talk about it, and we don't give ourselves permission. I feel like people are just craving permission, right? Like, and I'll go back to this because you're like, I want to be wealthy. And you're like, some people think that's about like, there was a disclaimer, right? And it's interesting because people just we all want permission to not have to have disclaimers. Like we want to be like, I want to be wealthy. I want to be confident. I want to look my best. I want to have a killer body. I want relationships that thrive. Like I want it all. And I'm doing the work to actually get there. I'm giving myself credit. I want to live out loud. Like we all want that, but we tend to be afraid that we're too much. We don't want to look like we're greedy. We don't want to be too confident. We don't want to be judged. Like, and so then we start chipping away at all that bigness that we once thought we wanted. And let's get back to you as a speaker. So we've got you walking on stage, adding value, up there with Tony Robbins and Ed Milet, like killing it, killing the game, super wealthy. You are giving, you are having that wealth for yourself and your family. You are impacting others. You are showing that they can all be successful early on. Doesn't matter about age, doesn't matter about all of that. They can gain that traction quickly. So now we've got, because I think the biggest thing with speakers is there's a few different kinds of speakers, right? There's kind of the paid speaker. There's the inspirational speaker. There's the speaker that's kind of selling their product from stage, right? A lot of speakers nowadays, and I do kind of half and half, where it's a gateway to their products, right? Gateway kind of to their services. Some they'll sell like really bluntly from stage. Some they are just basically getting their word out and they're expecting people to kind of go see what that person has to offer. And so it sounds like for you, that it might be a little bit of mixture of both, right? So we've got like an inspirational side of things and also a kind of a pitch without being a pitch, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for, I'd say 5 years now. No, so it was about 3 or 4 years. So always my recommendation early on is that every opportunity, every meeting with someone is a chance to offer to come add value to their group, to their community, to them on a one, like all this, like I want to just help inspire. And there's no expectation on the back end. You're not pitching anything. You're not selling anything. You're not being paid to speak. Early on in speakers' careers, the beginning is always practice without expectation. And there will be a switch there. There will be a point there where you'll know that it's time to start receiving money. It's time to start pitching, right? There's going to be a pivot moment. But in the beginning, and like I said, I think I spoke a little too long on this because I really didn't understand that pivot to the pitching side of things for a really long time. But in the beginning, it is pure practice, crafting your talk. You're going to be seeing what moves people. Every time that you do it, you're going to do a little bit different. You're going to be paying attention to when did they tear up? What part of the story was really impactful for them? Did it fall flat? How many people came up afterwards? What are they saying? Are they saying you're so inspirational, or they're saying, how can I work with you? Right. So the beginning of a speaker career, and this is advice I've gotten, but basically advice that I've really gained for myself, that beginning phase is all practice and research. We can do it. I'm happy to help you. Like, I'm happy to work with you one-on-one on this if you want. But in the beginning, what you're going to be doing is sort of a formula, right? That we've got a story, we've got a emotional connection to the person, and then you've got a call to action for them. And it's really, really interesting. And now that kind of I'm going to pull this to your attention, you're going to become really aware of it. And it's fascinating that there are speakers that are speaking for themselves. And the goal is to be a speaker that speaks for the audience. For a really long time, I was a speaker that spoke for myself. I wanted the validation. I wanted the stage. I wanted the attention. I wanted the spotlight. And those were not converting. Some people were tearing up, but it was more, I was the one tearing up, right? That you are speaking, and this is okay in the beginning. This is actually not a bad thing, but you are up there for your own benefit, and you're using these opportunities as practice and research, because you have to gain that practice, right? You have to almost get it out of your system so that you know that when you go on stage, you are speaking for the audience, because you've already worked out whatever needed to be up there for yourself. In the beginning, that is not a bad thing to be up there speaking for yourself. And I don't know, some people might like bash me for saying that, I wonder, but it's interesting, because now you'll pay attention. You'll be like, they're up there for themselves. They need this moment right now, right? Like, I'm gaining something, I'm inspired, or maybe I've got some, strategy that they've given me, but they're up there for themselves. We saw this at Lions Den Live. There were some from the 5 minute, right? Some of the Den members that were very much up there for themselves. They needed that stage as part of their healing, as part of their growth. We all need that phase of it. And then there's others that was like, dude, they were up there for me. I needed that. And then there's some speakers that are speaking into themselves. So give yourself permission in the beginning to speak into it for yourself. I feel like there were parts of that story that were very much for him, very much for the audience. Right. I absolutely. And I think that's the kicker, because there are some parts of my stories as I'm working through them, or it's a new part that I'm, sharing, that I'm like, that one was for me. I needed that part of it for me, but the overall talk is for the audience. Right. So there's going to be pieces of it too. But like a lot of the Den member ones, right? Like the one like I had was the 5 minutes where they went through really fast, and like there was Alex, and there was Cross, what's the last first name? Something Cross. So like there was all those 5 minute ones. And I'd say that like the majority of the 5 minute were up there for themselves. It's really cool that actually Sean gives that space, because there's parts of Sean that is up there for himself. And I loved actually that the conference I went to this last weekend, the girl called it out very, very clearly. And she said, because this one girl it was like a Q&A, and the girl was feeling guilty. She's like, I want to be in service, but like, I feel really guilty for really liking the spotlight. And the girl leading it, Lindsay Schwartz, she was like, give yourself permission. She's like, there's a part of me that loves this limelight, and I'm here to serve. I can do both. But what I'm referring more to is like during your talk, there's parts of the story that you're sharing for yourself. Part of the healing or the journey or the growth is the speaking process. Does that make sense? So, and like I said, like back in January, I shared a part of my story for the first time that I was very ashamed of. It was like one of my like embarrassing moments in my like healing journey, especially with like my healing with my ex-husband. And I shared it and I was so nervous to share it. And I knew that part of me sharing it was I had healed through it. I was ready to serve it, but it was part of, for me, right? It was shining light on the shame so it couldn't hold me down anymore. Public speaking is really, really layered. And that's why I say in the beginning, you are speaking for practice without expectation. It is practice and research. It is healing and research. You are up there for you, but you're up there because you've got something to share, right? You're up there because you are something to share. There's part of your story that people need to hear, right? You're not doing it simply for the limelight. I used to be a television host back in Palm Springs, and I got out of the television industry because I realized that like nothing I was doing had substance. I was like, I love the limelight. I love the stage, like stage and lights. Like I love it. Love, love, love it. Like I'm a girl with a microphone liking the spotlight. It felt empty. Whereas a motivational speaker, you like the limelight and you've got substance to share. Powerful.
Yeah, very powerful.
Wow. Awesome. So before I ask the question, because I don't want to lose this thought. I read it in a Brene Brown book once, and this has been monumental in my speaking. And she basically said, ensure that your wounds are now scars and not open wounds when you share about the thing that you are currently working through. You are up there speaking as something you already worked through, and you've gained the wisdom from it. And that's what you're sharing. What are the keys? So I'll give you kind of the framework, and then you can kind of go home and process this and really think about this, and let me know kind of what you come up with. But the keys for memorable talk, we've got a story. So you're always going to start with something that's going to bring them in and add that emotional connection to them. And also we learn through stories, right? So have it captivating without the audience really knowing how it ends right away. Okay, so you're going to kind of tie in that ending at the end. You're going to teach. So you're going to share what the message of the story was. You're actually going to call it out so their brain doesn't have to do the work. And then you're going to give them tools from that. So a strategy implementation for what they just learned. Right? And that's exactly what I did for you to do today. I talked about my own story as a speaker, where I went with it. And see, this is for sales, it's for anything. But when you think about it, I gave you my story, right? And mine's kind of still ending, but I gave you some things to learn from my own experience. I taught you what that message was, right? And then I gave you some tools to kind of go in and implement it. The bonus, and we'll get to the bonus part later, so I don't want you to necessarily stress about this one, but the bonus is integrate. So actually walk them through a process that gets it into their body. You know, with Tony Robbins, he's all about getting that into your body. So like when I did my 5-minute, I had them integrate right then and there. I took them through that forgiveness process. Now it's in their body. Now it's in their soul. But for you, I just want you to first think about your story, your teaching of the story, and tools. Okay. And think about the story that is relatable to who you're speaking to. So kind of you know, you've got your end game in mind of who you want to be working with. Maybe it's the new realtors. Maybe it's someone that, you know, children of alcoholics. I mean, you could go different directions based on maybe where this calls you and takes you. Be open to that flexibility and those pivots that as they happen. But start with that, right? And then that way, when you start to kind of pitch and reach out to people, you already know, and you've already got that confidence in the back of your mind of, I know what I'm going to teach, right? I know how I'm going to be able to speak some wisdom into them. And that way it's going to disarm yourself of your own judgment.